Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, and fresh off his appearance on The Reload just moments ago, Mike Piwowarski of The Rundown. Not of the Reload, but of The Rundown. My apologies, Mike. I got too many R's in my vocabulary spinning through my head right now. How have you been doing, bud?
Doing pretty good, Paul. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Just getting social media hooked up right now. I want to remind everybody, if you are watching us on the Polite Society Facebook or YouTube pages, not any Facebook groups, but the Polite Society Podcast Facebook page or YouTube channel, you can comment on that live video. We'll get your comments up. We'll discuss them on the air. If you're watching us anywhere else, go to YouTube or go to Twitter and tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. My brain is just on spin cycle today, apparently, man.
That's right. It's close enough to the holiday season. I think we're all going through it, Paul. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, we've got what? It is the 15th. We got 2 weeks, and it'll all be done, so...
It's 8 days until Festivus.
Yes. My favorite holiday, especially the airing of grievances, and boy, have I got some for you. Let's go ahead.
That's fine. You're going to have to pin me first before we eat, just so you're clear.
All right. Let's get started on news topics for the day, man. First two stories actually come off The Reload, Stephen Gutkowski's website. This first one, the CDC deleted a reference to a study it commissioned after a group of gun control advocates complained it made passing new restrictions more difficult. The lobbying campaign spanned months and culminated with a private meeting between CDC officials and 3 advocates this past summer. A collection of emails obtained by The Reload show that introductions from the White House and Senator Dick Durbin, he's, of course, a Democrat out of Illinois' office, helped the advocates reach top officials at the agency after their initial attempt to reach went unanswered. The advocates focused their complaints on the CDC's description of its review of studies that estimated defensive gun use has happened between 60,000 and 2.5 million times per year in the United States. And the article goes on from there, but I guess if the facts don't fit your narrative, you can just go to the government, cry enough, and get them to change the facts.
Yeah, good old Dick Durbin, right? If the Democrat Party needs anything, they need more Dick. So it's nice to see him doing what he does so well. Paul, how convenient, right? Listen, here's a statistic that does not agree with their agenda. So what do? They have that statistic removed. The statistic, of course, like you just said, the defensive gun uses, which justifies the need to provide yourself with a self-defense mechanism. Naming so the firearm protected under the Second Amendment. But it's inconvenient, Paul. So we're going to go ahead and have some private meetings and wait for the likes of investigative reporter Stephen Gutkowski to go find it and pull it back out and expose that. They're skewing it. This is basically lying about the results of this study by taking out the parts they don't like. Yes,
that's absolutely. Well, they didn't just take out parts of the study; they wiped out the whole thing, and it's very much just, we don't like this, so get rid of it. And now it seems the CDC, besides the ATF, besides the FBI, now the CDC is weaponized against gun owners as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time when they found bad statistics. Remember, they just didn't release their information. Well, now that the information's out there, like you said, the Dick Durbin and his group, his ilk, they want to go out and remove the bad statistics. I mean, this just exemplifies corruption, right? Listen, here's something we don't want. It's something that makes us look bad. It's something that's not our agenda. Have it removed under the color of government darkness, right?
Yes, and that's, again, you're dead on there. Under the color of government darkness, the government, if it doesn't fit their narrative, they're not going to they're going to bow to whoever's whim and just sweep it under the rug. Next story I got, also off the Reload. This one, banning and confiscating commonly owned ammunition magazines does not run afoul of the Second Amendment, at least according to U.S. District Judge John McConnell's reading of the amendment. On Wednesday, McConnell denied a motion for a preliminary injunction against Rhode Island's recently passed law banning the sale and possession of common ammunition magazines capable of holding 10 rounds. 10 rounds, dude, that's a baby mag. That's for subcompact pistols. That is not for rifles, and it is certainly not for a standard handgun. I've got a couple of subcompact handguns that do take standard magazines that are less than 10 rounds, but everything else I own has standard magazines that range from 15 to 30 and on up.
Yeah, exactly right. I know later on in the program we're going to discuss, the ramifications of the Bruin decision, but this just goes to show that we still have judges out there that rule on, emotion. They want to legislate from the bench. They do not want to rule upon the rule of law, and this is what you get. This is clearly, if the standards of Bruin had been applied, this injunction would have been in place, and perhaps even the law itself would have been deemed unconstitutional. But now, here you have a judge who comes up with pseudo psychobabble, even in his ruling, determining why these injunction against standard round magazines should not be put in place. In fact, Paul, I've got a little quote here from it, if I could. This is the judge's. This is what the judge said concerning it. So now, Paul, what you really want to see here is a definitive yes or no and the reasons why, right? Here's the judge's reasoning. And now this is 100 words or so give me a moment here, folks. It says it's not entirely accurate to say that the victims of mass shootings are chosen randomly. True, they are random in that their identities are usually not known to the shooter, and it appears to matter not to the shooter whether the next one killed is a particular person or woman standing next to him. But in actuality, victims have not been chosen randomly. They have been chosen because they are attending a synagogue in Pittsburgh or a church in Sutherland Spring, or because they're sitting in a school classroom in Newtown or a high school classroom in Parkland, or because they were at a concert in Las Vegas or a nightclub in Orlando. They were not chosen because of anything they did, but because of what they represented to a particular person with a gun and a lot of ammunition. Paul, did you hear anything in there that had anything to do with the constitutionality of a standard capacity magazine? Not
even the least little bit. In his decision, and let me go off a little bit, the plaintiffs have failed their burden to demonstrate that large capacity magazines are arms within the meaning of the Second Amendment's text, Judge McConnell, an Obama appointee wrote in his order. Moreover, even were they arms, the plaintiffs have failed to prove that LCMs are weapons relating to self-defense. There is no Second Amendment violation of the large capacity magazine ban because of these two shortfalls of persuasion. I'm going to say this: a arm will not work without a magazine. It just doesn't work. And so magazines, therefore, are part of arms. This judge is so far off base, and I expect this. I would be stunned if this were not appealed and eventually reversed.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is we know how the Supreme Court has ruled, and we know that if this does get appealed, or when it gets appealed, and when it gets through the different appellate levels and gets its way to the Supreme Court, that they're not going to be polite in their rebuff of Judge McConnell here, and any other judge that chooses to, legislate from the bench rather than rule on the rule of law. This judge is, like you said, a political appointee. All these federal judges are, but a Democrat political appointee, and clearly was brought to the bench so that he could ignore the rule of law and just go with the current administration's policy as far as it comes to, what do you call them, LCMs, right?
Yeah.
He's even got a little term for them now instead of standard capacity magazines. This guy is putting lives in danger. And Paul doesn't even know his own facts. He cited Parkland in his reasoning for one of the reasons for not having these large capacity magazines, these standard capacity magazines. If anybody did any research, or if the judge managed to do 10 seconds worth of research, he'd have found that that the shooter in Parkland used 10-round and 5-round magazines, because in Florida, they're basically worthless, all right? Even for hunting magazines in Florida, there's no limit capacity on the magazine. It's just the number of rounds in the magazine. So I can hunt with a 30-round magazine in my modern sporting AR rifle, but I can only have 5 rounds in the magazine. So these magazines were worthless. Basically, the dealer was getting rid of them, throw them away, and gave them to the shooter in Parkland, and he had a backpack full of them when he committed his horrendous crimes there at the high school.
Not only that, the reason he did, and he had larger capacity magazines, the reason he chose the smaller 10-round magazines is they were more concealable in that backpack.
Yep.
And so, yeah, there you go. Again, not one iota of research on the part of the judge.
Yeah. It's just clearly his agenda and his mind were made up before this probably even came to arguments, or to the paperwork being submitted. He knew what his answer would be before even presented with the facts, and chose not to even research the facts as he cited them. He has given false information in his ruling. Yeah.
Next story, and this is I just very briefly scrolled through this at the beginning of the day, and I thought this is not good news, but it turns out it is very good news for those in Ohio. This is off Cleveland.com. Police would be banned from stopping guns from being sold or carried in areas where a riot is happening or might take place under legislation passed Thursday morning during a marathon session by Ohio state lawmakers. Senate Bill 16, which now goes to Governor Mike DeWine's desk, would also declare gun stores an essential business that can't be shut down by the state during a declaration of emergency. And as I was thinking about this one today, when do I really, really, really need a gun? If there's a riot and they're starting to head my way, that is when I really need a firearm. And to say nope, not if there's a riot nearby. Well, how many people are going to go run into a gun store and buy a gun when, oh, by the way, you've got to pass a background check and get a firearm if they're going to immediately go out and use it to riot? The answer to that is zero. They get their guns from the black market. So,
we saw this as a necessity after what a lot of the Democrat lawmakers did after COVID. Remember, we're under emergency orders and lockdown and everything, and we're shutting down businesses. Well, many of the Republican governors, mine here in Florida, Captain Florida himself, Ron DeSantis, made sure to clarify that firearms dealers were an essential business and were allowed to stay open. Many of the Democrat local politicians tried to shut them down, and the governor said, sure, you could shut them down, and I'll remove you from office. How many other states did we see this in, Paul, where, we got to shut it down, we have to restrict firearm sales? How many times did we see it when the riots were starting to move across the country from the BLM nonsense, and they said, nope, can't sell firearms anymore. Why would you ever need a firearm to protect yourself during a riot? Paul, we saw the video, right? They were mostly peaceful.
And burning down the entire city as they were mostly peacefully traveling through it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lessons learned. It's good to see Governor DeWine actually, putting the word out there and getting this, put into law there that, you're not going to be able to, arbitrarily decide, it's an emergency, you can't have firearms. We're not going to let you have firearms to defend yourself. It still dumbfounds me. Lots of crime. Let's take guns out of the good guys' hands. Threat upon us. Let's take guns out of the good guys' hands. And it's just like you said. If anything, if they get desperate enough, you're forcing the law-abiding citizens to turn to the criminal element or turn to committing a criminal act in order to defend themselves and their family.
You're absolutely right, and you championed Captain Florida here a few minutes ago. I want to, and I hate to seem like I'm one-upping all the time, but in South Dakota, Kristi Noem never issued an emergency declaration, period, during that whole pandemic scare thing. No businesses on the state level were ever forced to shut down. Now, local jurisdictions did what the local jurisdictions do, but on the state level, we never had a shutdown in South Dakota. So, that's one thing I'm very grateful for, is that our governor believes in freedom. So,
yeah, she's a keeper. You guys got a good one up there as well.
Next one, and then the next two are just mostly the what relates between those two. These next two stories is a media that's going, oh, woe is us. First one off, AZ Central. Arizona Central is due to return in 25 days. Already it appears that Republicans are armed to the teeth, ready, willing, and able to shoot themselves smack in the foot. The article begins. This by holding nearly a million Arizona school children hostage. It started with Governor Doug Ducey reneging on a promise to call the legislature back to the Capitol before year's end to lift the spending limit on public schools, a cap that could force schools to have to shut down this spring. Now suddenly he wants to attach conditions to offering Arizona's children stability through the rest of the school year. And if Ducey leaves office without taking action, Republican legislators are already talking about holding the kids hostage to their own demands in January. Just about done here. Rep. Jacqueline Parker of Mesa on Wednesday called out on her fellow Republicans to slow on lifting what's called the aggregate expenditure limit. Anyone votes for AEL expansion in the upcoming session without meaningful election integrity reforms is handing our state over to Democrats in 2024, and then goodbye to ESAs, goodbye gun rights, goodbye freedom, she tweeted. This is a gun show. This is a gun and gun rights show. This is not a education show, but I think they're on the right track. If we don't have free and fair elections, then the rest of our rights are going to go away.
Yeah, listen. Can you tell the political orientation of the person that wrote this article, right? And which way they lean. I'm sure they're completely partisan with their the way they've relayed their information. So, folks, here's the deal, right? Governor Ducey it was term limit out. The new election came, and the Democrat candidate was elected. Let's just leave it at that. Not going to go anywhere near that.
Yes.
So what?
At 3 a.m., but that's beside the point.
Right. The Republican representatives, the Republican senators of the state said, "Listen, recertifying, the budget here for public schools is coming up. It's on the ballot, or it's going to be not on the ballot. It's going to be in their state house, and they've made it clear. We're telling you right now, folks." If you come in and you mess with our Second Amendment rights here, we will delay the vote on education to the point where schools shut down, and then you'll be the ones that'll be standing there with your thumbs up your bum because you prevented the schools from being funded because of your overzealousness to ban firearms in this state. Arizona is one of the top 3 in gun rights in the country, and now. They want to come back and try and take that away because the Democrat candidate, is won the statewide office of governorship. Now, luckily, although sometimes it doesn't matter at the federal level, right, with the pen and that nonsense, but the governor doesn't get to create law. They get to sign into or veto certain legislation. But the incoming governor is trying to strong arm. Taking away the firearms rights, and so here's the hardball the Republicans are playing. Sure, you want to do that? This is what we're going to do. What's your next step? They say Governor Ducey, reneged on his pledge to come in and to take care of the school funding issue. Well, now that the election's gone the other way, he's made the commitment. He's made the statement that, well, listen, we're not touching schools until we ensure that firearms rights are protected here in the state. And when I'm gone, the Republican legislature has said that they will take up the same mantle and continue to protect Second Amendment rights by putting the student funding, the school funding, held hostage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really surprised, Mike. As of this point, we are 20 minutes into the live show. We don't have a single comment yet. We had some check-ins before we went live, but as of right now, we got no comments. So let's go ahead and go on to our next story. This one off the Trace, which obviously is not exactly a bastion for freedom. And this is in the middle of the story. Bruin is changing everything. The Supreme Court's Second Amendment decision requires all gun regulations to pass a strict originalist test. Lawmakers are charged with finding a historical analog for proposed firearm laws, and if there's no proof of precedent, it could be held unconstitutional. Post-Bruin challenges to the state gun restrictions are already winding their way for the courts, and the cases give us a glimpse of the future, Ryan Busey writes in The Atlantic. One without serial numbers or serial number records for guns, laws against domestic abusers having firearms, and regulations and no regulations of assault weapons. This is actually what they're saying. Oh, woe is us. This is what's coming. I'm going, oh, hey, hooray, hooray. This is what's coming. We get our rights back.
Yeah, again, we referenced the Bruin decision earlier, and this is it. They're upset that there's a new standard. They're upset that you've got the plain text examination. You've got to find some historical justification, and when those are followed, it ends up being clearly in favor of Second Amendment rights. We saw the federal judge I think it was in Alabama, who said, What am I supposed to do? Become a historian now and have to research all this stuff? Listen, buddy, you have to do legal research anyway. That's part of your job, is when you're checking case law and checking past rulings. So that's a guy who was mad that he had to do it the right way. He voiced his opinion, and still waiting to see his final decision there. But how many of these other judges now around the country are going to continue to ignore Bruin? And like the story points out, of course it says it's going to turn us into the Wild West, right? There's going to be a shooting on every corner because everybody's going to have a gun. It's the
blood
same
will
cry
run in the streets. Yeah.
Yep. Every time, it's going to be the Wild West out there again. Every time a pro-gun legislation is brought up, or we try to get back our rights, that's what you hear. And it's funny, Paul, that's never ever happened. No legal gun owner ever goes out there, buys guns, and starts shooting people over gas pumps. It doesn't happen.
You know what does happen? If we become disarmed, look at Britain's violent crime rate, and look at people carrying machetes down the street, and the police can't respond because most of the police, not all, most of the police don't have guns. And so these people are hacking people to death with no repercussions. They're not arrested for hours. That is what disarmament does.
We saw it there with the terrorist attack on the London Bridge. Was it 3 years ago? Mm-hmm. They had blades. They went after. They killed people. They cut people. And some of the patrons in a local pub had to defend themselves with a narwhal tusk that was on the wall. That's what they used to defend themselves. So they're already talking about, and we know the mayor there in London is talking about blade legislation to prevent knives. All I can guess is what's next is narwhal tusk legislation in England. You could listen. Evil exists. It doesn't matter if it's with the gun, it's with the knife, it's with the narwhal tusk, it's with a rock. It doesn't matter. It's always going to exist. Taking the individual's rights away from protecting themselves. That's the sin. That's the error. That's what's going to cause whether it's the political upheaval and revolts or whatever. And I'm not advocating violence in any way, but there's going to be, more people wanting to be heard. Look what happened in Virginia, 2 years ago when they started to take away. Remember the gun rights there, and they had the Virginia Citizens Defense League had their rally, and they had the exclusionary zone, and you couldn't bring firearms to the exclusionary zone. You remember what they brought in, Paul, to make their point? They brought in a life-size guillotine.
Yes.
Listen, I don't think anything tells a politician like, you better watch what you're doing, more than a guillotine dragged to the courthouse steps.
Or maybe they could next time supplement that with a big boiling cauldron of tar with some feathers right there next to it.
There you go. Just like that. Yep.
And did get a couple comments in here. Gun Websites on the YouTube side says, been listening, and Krabby Turtle says, yeah, same, me too. So they're there. They're just being quiet today. So
I guess we had nothing questionable today. It was all just pretty. Unlike the CDC removing facts, our facts were all out in the open.
There you go. And how do I put this? And unassailable. So there you go.
Yeah.
We are coming close to the bottom of the hour. I think we're actually going to get out of here on time. So while we're waiting for the bottom of the hour to get here, if you would, tell us about the rundown and tell us about Arms Room Radio and anything else you want to plug today, man.
Yeah, well, let's see. Rundown. I think we've been coming up on our second year. Was it February, March? I'll make 2 years, and we're already something like 300 episodes into this thing. 325 episodes. It's been going pretty good. Having a great time with co-host Craig DeLuz there, and it's 2A News, a conservative view. So it's kind of neat because you get to step outside of the Second Amendment realm and just go with all conservative issues. So it's been kind of enjoyable. There'll be a chat show. We'll be a chat show also at in a month from now. Arms Room Radio. It's kind of what started it all for me in the Second Amendment realm of being in the public eye during the Second Amendment realm and helping to present all the information we can to our fellow Second Amendment supporters out there. 8 years been running that one. We're in our 8th year, so that's great. That's me and my co-host Earl. And again, we'll be at SHOT Show. Everybody, come on out there. If you're in Vegas, if you're not in Vegas, come out to Vegas. I know we're gonna have a great big party on Monday night to kick it off, and you don't have to be a SHOT Show attendee to come to the party. So it's gonna be a great time, and love doing the work and enjoy the likes of you and all the other Second Amendment Foundation supporters and everybody else that's a Second Amendment supporter. There's room for you in the house.
Having been to that party a few years ago when I went to SHOT Show, I will say this: you don't need to attend SHOT Show. I would recommend you bring your ear pro along with you, though. It does tend to get a little bit loud. So, on my end, tomorrow, come join me for Legal Friday with Alex Uli. And then checking my calendar beyond that, Saturday show this week, it's going to be one where I got to try to keep things on the rails again. Brooke Cheney, Dan Waz, and Tony Simon are going to be my commentators this weekend. That's Saturday at noon. So that is going to do it for us today. I would like to recommend everybody, please do visit saf.org/join. If you're not a lifetime member, it's only $150. And these lawsuits, I'm not kidding you, take more than $1 million just in paperwork and side costs, not including attorney's fees, just to get them to the Supreme Court. So the more people we have that are members, that means we have more money for lawsuits and getting our rights back. So please, again, it's saf.org/join. That is going to do it for us today. Until next time, everybody, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.